In question 5 we want to know if our function f of x is shifted to the right by c units, how does the inverse change? Well, let's solve this question quick on a graph, it will make sense. So we have an xy axis, x and y and the origin, and let's say this is the shape of our function. Let's say it looks something like that, something curvy, so it's something like that. This is f of x. What is the inverse? Literally, the inverse means that the function switches the axis. This is going to be the y axis of our inverse, and this is going to be the x axis of our inverse. Well, if that is the case, let's actually draw them with a different color. This is going to be the y axis of our inverse. This is going to be the x axis of our inverse. If we're shifting f of x to the right, so let's go to the right by c units, okay, by c units. It means we're shifting the entire graph by c units, so it would look something like that. Okay, we move the original function f of x to the right. What happens to the inverse? If we look at the inverse from the opposite position, that this is the y-axis of the inverse. Well, the y-axis of the inverse, if we have a look, the function, if this is the function and we think in terms of the inverse, it goes up along the y-axis. Think of it not as going along the x-axis, but along as going to the y-axis. So the function is shifted up by c units. So the answer is literally this, that the inverse is shifted up by c units. It's shifted up by c units. Shifted up by c units. And once again, we just switch places. Instead of thinking this as the x-axis, we consider this as the y-axis of our inverse. And if the inverse was at this position, now it's going up along its y-axis, along the y-axis of our inverse. I hope this makes sense. We are done.